Before the video starts, I wanted to give a quick update on the status of the Sonic Frontiers video. I've mentioned in a few other videos that I've said I wanted to make it a much larger scale video than the standard Wise review, and while that's still true, I feel like I owe it to you guys to explain myself. So it's gotten so big that not only am I completely reconsidering parts of it and how I want the main bulk to go, but also to make it a bit easier to manage mentally, I'm now releasing it in 3 parts. So part 1 is hopefully going to be done before the end of the year. And part 2 is the part that is probably going to give me the most trouble because it's the longest. It is the main review part. So hopefully I can get that done relatively quick with only a few rewrites, but I can't promise anything. Definitely going to be a lot longer out than the first part. And there's definitely going to be a much bigger gap between the first part and the second part than the second part and the third part. I can guarantee that. But for now, just wanted to give you guys a heads up on where that whole mess is at. It makes this video a bit harder to do because some of what is important about this game comes from the fact that it came out after Frontiers. So without my thoughts on Frontiers, it can be a little bit hard to properly explain it. But I'll try my best to not compare it to Frontiers too much in a way that you couldn't understand without just simply having played Frontiers or just been around when Frontiers released or heard anyone talk about it or watched someone else's review. So hopefully it all makes sense. It probably will. I'm probably just making it a bigger deal in my head because that's what I do. Also, did you know that I stream on Twitch? In fact, not only have I streamed a preparation stream for this game where I played every original level from this game and Sonic Generations, but I've also streamed a few of my recording sessions for this very review. That's something I occasionally do. Usually it's other games, but sometimes I gotta get work done, so I live stream it. That happens every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at about 9 p.m. I know that's late, but I have a job. So if you're interested, it's twitch.tv/AJY04. Feel free to come hang out. I'm not wearing this again. Oh, hello. I thought that this was going to be a light year for Sonic. Sonic Frontiers was a big deal, and Sonic Superstars was a pleasant surprise to come out soon after. I would assume that pretty much every team working on Sonic games would be busy with their next project and that we'd get nothing this year except for the movie. But then, in a state of play of all places, they announced a Sonic Generations remaster. Alright, I like Generations, it'll be nice to have it on modern consoles. But then right at the end, holy shit, they're adding a Shadow story. At first, I'm sure most people thought this would just be another episode Shadow, just a few levels or maybe something as small as just an alternate skin for modern Sonic. But as they kept revealing more, it began to appear to be more so using Sonic Generations as a Trojan horse of sorts to make Shadow the Hedgehog 2, a 3D World plus Bowser's Fury situation. But this game isn't Shadow the Hedgehog 2, it's actually Sonic Generations 2, and Sonic Unleashed 2, and Sonic Frontiers 2, and Shadow the Hedgehog 2, and Sonic Adventure 2 2. This game is part of the Year of Shadow promotion. Basically, since the movie is going to be about Shadow and this is coming out the same year, they did a big marketing push involving Shadow during this year. Like the Year of Luigi, but financially viable. This game is the first glimpse of where Sonic could be going post-Frontiers, and honestly, I think this is the perfect evolution of that game's formula. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's get the Sonic stuff out of the way first. The overall story hasn't been changed, but the dialogue is in a lot of places. I don't mind it really, I actually prefer how upfront the new dialogue is with referencing the past. I mentioned it in my Generations video, but it always felt weird to me how much they just refused to acknowledge that they recognize these locations. For a celebration of Sonic's past, it almost felt ashamed of it. I know some people have problems with the influence's tendency to throw in references through dialogue that don't always roll seamlessly, especially in the comics. But if you know anything about me, then it's probably that I also do that, so I never really had an issue with it or thought it got in the way too much. But with how boring and downright non-existent the dialogue is in the original,
Every line of this version could be derived from a reference that didn't fit in at all, and it still would be more entertaining. Besides, this game is a celebration of Sonic's past. If there was a time to reference as much as possible, it would be now. Like I said, it's impossible to make the writing in this game worse. My only real issue is that some of the lines feel like this part was written as an afterthought and are delivered like they were phoning it in, and also like they weren't able to change the visuals, so they had to fit the words in faster than they could naturally.
It was great teaming up with you, or me. Maybe this will fast track you to learning some new tricks in the future. Wait, I mean, past. Ugh, time travel's a chore.
Like they were watching the cutscenes while they were recorded and had to try and match the video instead of the other way around, which is extra odd because they did change some of the cutscenes. Here's what I think happened.
Alright, Kirk, nice work. We'll call you if we need anything else. Okay, Ian, Roger's on his way. You got that Generations rewrite done, right? Oh, of course I do. On an unrelated note, I'm going to use the bathroom and take my laptop with me.
It's just weird because while I feel like a lot of the Gens lines sound off, Roger sounds really good in the part of Shadow's side where they cross over. Maybe the rewrite really was a last minute inclusion and the animations are slightly different too, which just makes it weirder that the pace feels off, but I'm never going to watch these cutscenes again realistically, so what do I care? The game is as good as ever. They changed the controls to be more in line with the Shadow portion, which controls like Frontiers. My only issue is not being able to customize the controls. I like using R2 to boost, but on quick-step segments you still need the shoulder buttons, so it can be a bit weird if you're not used to playing Claw. And I would really like it if Square didn't also jump. I wanted to make it also boost in case muscle memory took over, but there's no customization with the controls. It's either all new or all of the original, which is a lose-lose. It's not that hard to get used to, but I think complete control customization is something that most games just should have. What was really hard to get used to was the jump. Shadow has a double jump, Sonic does not. I'll give you 10 seconds to guess why that might cause problems. Other than that, it plays exactly the same. Though Classic Sonic has the drop dash now, which is always a nice inclusion. I prefer the regular spin dash because that's just how I roll, but it's never a
Time's up.
But it's never a bad idea to throw this move in. Okay, maybe that's a lie. Why does modern Sonic have the drop dash? In what scenario would it be more useful than just stomping and boosting? At least at Frontiers it had slightly different physics. Here, I can just never think of a time where I'm going to want to use it. In fact, it screwed me over more times than not, so it's actually a bit of a detriment. They didn't make the time meter any less ass, which is a missed opportunity. If anything, they might have actually made it worse. But I think it's for the best that this was mostly untouched. They added hidden chow in the stages, which is neat. It gives me a reason to go back to these levels outside of Red Rings, which functionally do the same thing. But whatever, more things to collect to make the numbers go up. And I also like how they have a few skins that you can use. I hope they add more. I know we're at the very least getting a movie Shadow skin for Shadow Generations, as well as a new level, so I hope that's a sign of what's to come and that Sonic Generations doesn't get left out in terms of, at the very least, alternate skins.
Sonic Generations is as good as it's ever been. It was really nice to revisit, but it's not what we're here for.
Shadow's story actually started with the Dark Beginnings animation that started releasing in September. The past few games have had promotional animations before, but this is a full-blown prologue way in a completely different league from those other ones. It starts with Shadow having a nightmare that he thinks is hinting at Black Doom's return, so he heads to the Ark to investigate. Okay, the actual story content is very lacking, almost as if it's a prologue to the real story or something. But you watch this for the fight scenes, voice acting, and interactions. It's all just perfect. Seeing this acknowledge all these parts of Shadow's past is nice to see, similar to how Frontiers acknowledged Sonic's past. I also got jump scared by Roger Craig Smith voicing Omega and the gun commander Abraham Tower.
I call dibs. And aided in the destruction of millions in gun assets.
Close enough. Welcome back, regular show.
Now obviously, I'm going to spoil the hell out of this game, and my summary isn't going to do the story justice. I highly recommend you play this game yourself or watch the cutscenes on your own before watching this. If you want to just skip to the gameplay part, there's a timestamp because I'm going to spoil the fuck out of this game. There, I'm only going to spoil mainly gameplay stuff you've already seen in the trailers. A few things that are different, but it's obviously focused on the gameplay. And there might be a passing mention of a character that's there you might not know, but it's not going to ruin the story for you.
The game picks up with Shadow investigating the Ark during Sonic's birthday. He sees a disturbance and goes to investigate. During the level, Doom Eye pops up and warps Shadow to Radical Highway where they have a short fight. After Doom disappears and returns the Ark to normal, Shadow finds the fake Chaos Emerald from Sonic Adventure 2 and then is taken by the Time Eater. He wakes up in white space and starts investigating the Ark more when he's suddenly overcome with power and sprouts fucking wings made of goo. The power eventually goes away, but he finds a gear that he can use on these towers that grants him new abilities. He keeps exploring white space and the levels within, growing stronger with new mutations, and Black Doom reveals that the Time Meter shenanigans have brought the promised time closer. It's also implied that Black Doom has been revived outside of time travel, as not only does he remember being defeated, but some of the other characters also have a few lines that almost imply that he's been revived as opposed to just brought back because of the circumstance. Probably just them keeping the door open in case they think of anything they want to do with this villain in the future, but who knows. Black Doom says he won't face Shadow until he gets stronger, and as the mutations Shadow's been going through are clearly linked to the Black Arms. After a few more levels, Shadow runs into Maria and Gerald Robotnik. He plays it cool and doesn't trauma dump on what their future holds just yet, but he does throw out the idea that he could change their fate to himself. In response to Shadow's power and the giant biblically accurate Black Doom, Gerald confesses that he used Black Doom's blood to make Shadow, and as Shadow grows stronger through the Doom powers, so does Black Doom. His plan is to either assimilate Shadow into a Black Arms by taking over his mind, or using his body as a new vessel. Shadow starts giving into his anger at the whole situation, but Maria is able to calm him down and help him focus. She also reveals that she named him Shadow, which is a blow to the feels that I didn't sign up for on its own that she got to name him, but she tells him that she called him that because shadows point towards the light, which is also cute, but bullshit. It's because he's black. Shadow eventually finds himself in Sonic's neck of the whitewashed space, and they fight for the Chaos Emerald. Shadow has to hold back his Doom powers, so Sonic gets the upper hand, but the one that Sonic takes is the fake Emerald, and Shadow tells Rouge to switch them out when he's done with his business. Though it makes me wonder if Sonic can use the fake Emerald to go super. He was able to use it to Chaos Control, and Shadow can barely tell the difference too, so I mean, what is it really capable of? It's never really touched on in either that game nor this game. Shadow grows his wings again, this time getting to keep them, and he promises not to let Black Doom cloud his mind with anger, and tells Maria that he's keeping his promise. Black Doom fully sprouts, and after running through Radical Highway, Shadow arrives to sever his bond with Black Doom by killing him. Shadow of course wins, and flies back to give Rouge the real emerald to give to Sonic. His wings go away because Black Doom is pretty dead right now, And he has one last moment with Gerald and Maria before they return to their point in time, finding the resolve in him to let go and running off to help Sonic.
On your feet.
Damn. It's been a while since a story in one of these games really hit me like this, probably since Unleashed. It's not very long, about the length of base gens, but having a story so compelling with so many impactful moments and as well animated as this is something I've been missing for a while. I also like how it recontextualized Shadow 05's ending. I mentioned in that video how the whole concept of letting go and moving on falls flat because of the game's multiple endings and questionable canon. The endings stretch him in every possible direction, leaving him a directionless character when he decides to move on. Is he black-hearted evil or brave-hearted hero at the end of this game? Who knows? In an attempt to make him all of him, they made him none of him. This not only gives him direction, but also clarifies that he's not letting go of his memories of Gerald and Maria. Maria's wish is still important to him even if he can live for his own purpose. But he's letting go of the grief, the anger that drove him to almost destroy the world and almost led him right into Black Doom's hands. And that's not even to mention the optional dialogue you can get. Every stage has someone standing around loitering you can talk to like in base gens, but here actually give a shit what they have to say. Some are just meant to be funny like Omega and Orbot and Cubot, but the dialogue with Rouge, Gerald, Maria, and even fucking Big are all interesting and help flesh out these characters and the situation. The dialogue changes as the story goes on and everyone has multiple things to say, so you should check up on everyone after each stage. But I'm just happy to have them here. It reminds me of Unleashed, having people around to talk to and add some context no matter how small. And again, it all just looks so good. I mean, look at this. I saw this image before release. I thought it was a promotional render, something that they throw on the side of like a train. This is a cutscene in the game.
That's enough of me rambling about the story, because the game itself is fucking fantastic.
The physics feel like a heavily tweaked version of Frontiers, way more polished and sort of a middle ground between that and normal boost. It feels way better than Cyberspace for reference. Most of the second acts are all 2D, but they still feel just as well designed. Plenty of action and the camera stays dynamic, so it doesn't really feel jarring. They don't feel like 2D versus 3D levels, they all feel like they fit together. The designs are some of the best in the series as a whole. Even without the Doom powers, this game would have been really good. But there are Doom powers. At the start, you just have chaos control, slowing down objects to turn into platforms, making it easier to catch certain enemies, or just racing past an obstacle that destroys the terrain before it can fire. You quickly get Chaos Spear, which you can lock on up to 5 targets, and it's mainly used to hit targets that you can't reach, or stun enemies that you can't homing attack. The homing attack can also be used to go through walls since Shadow teleports, but it's only really used a couple of times to where you can sort of forget about it, and it doesn't really feel important. The second Doom power you get is Surf. It happens automatically when you land in water. Not every stage has a point where you can use it, but your movement is surprisingly loose. You can't boost, so you can focus on your movement, spinning left and right to break things or deflect attacks. Sort of mostly a set piece and boss mechanic, but it's very cool nonetheless. Feels nice to control and is a seamless transition, especially in the open zone. Next you get a move that I forgot the name of. Some levels in White Space have black arm enemies that are stronger than normal enemies, so you use this to launch them in the air, blast them away, and then follow up by slamming them into the ground. This is mostly helpful during some of the White Space challenges and just getting around, especially up to some of the boss areas. You can go pretty far with this and it can break open certain paths or even just be how you get somewhere that's higher than you would normally go. Now Doom Morph is weird. I thought it would be like Surf where it automatically starts when you touch this purple goop. But you actually have to touch a morph ball first. Yes, they're called morph balls. I expect a Nintendo lawsuit by morning. This is the only ability where I had to go back and reread the tutorial twice because I didn't understand how the grapple part worked. I do now. When you're in squid mode, if you tap square while locked on, you'll launch yourself through it. If you hold square, you'll swing and jump automatically, and if you let go mid-swing, you'll pull yourself straight through it. I didn't understand this. I saw these rings directly above the morph balls and thought I had to get underneath them and homing attack. That's not how the game works. It won't lock on if it's directly above you. I had no clue what I was doing, but I get it now. And honestly, that fixed the whole ability for me. It's very fast and chaining it from points and walls feels really nice. It's only in White Space and Chaos Island, and for the Mephiles boss fight too, but it grew on me, making Chaos Island one of my favorite stages. The last ability you get is being allowed to keep the wings. These are so broken that every level has separate time recordings for if you have them on or not. It's the game stand-in for a super form. You get 50 rings, spread your wings, and you can fly right into the future. You can use this to skip whole sections of levels. Getting around the open zone is a breeze and they just look cool as hell. I haven't even begun to fully experiment with the uses of these things. I only recorded my main playthrough and a little bit of post-game. I wanted to have most of this game to myself. Recording adds a slight bit of pressure to maximize on time, and I think you can get away with the experience, but there is a lot to do after you beat the game. White Space this time around is a 3D open zone akin to Frontiers, but I feel like I get more of an Unleashed hub world vibe from this. Just something about the size and the general way it's designed, and maybe also having the people here helps. There are chests with concept art, music, and stories that you need gears to unlock. Gears are found in the level, so they took what I think was one of Frontier's best aspects, how every part plays into each other, and made it much more precise. I think this game gets the open zone perfectly. It's beautifully designed and serves as a hub world filled with side content meant to service the levels, as opposed to Frontiers where the levels were the side content servicing the open zones. I think this is a much better use of both open zone gameplay and classic boost. It satisfies both play styles as opposed to how lackluster cyberspace was. I hope this is the direction they continue to move in because it's perfect. I kinda wish there were a few more challenges for the levels. Each level has a few required challenges and a couple of hard ones. You have to do the normal ones to access bosses like in base gens, but I liked being able to choose which ones I did. There's a big variety of challenges there, so even if you only liked one of the Sonics, you had choices. Here, you have to pretty much do all of them, and you have most of them done pretty quickly. White Space also has its own challenges, gathering rings in time, catching these clocks in time. After beating the game, you can reactivate the Doom Zone, the fucked up state where the zone was in right before the last level, and it makes these challenges much harder. The bosses are harder, and it turns on the hard level challenges. There's a solid lineup of levels. I like how they took advantage of time travel and gave us some levels from games that came out after Generations. It was super cool seeing how this whole section of White Space represented Frontiers, and I love the Chaos Island level. It's a little odd how there didn't seem to be any Shadow 05 representation outside of the Black Arms, but you could argue that the Arc fills that void as there are a lot of Arc levels in that game. Yeah, the music is from SA2, but it's also the music from Sonic's level and not Shadow, so maybe we shouldn't get caught up in semantics. You could also argue that the most notable stage from Shadow, Westopolis, is aesthetically already too similar to the Radical Highway sections, having these huge buildings in the background and multiple segments not on the highway. If anything, the last level is more of a mix between Westopolis and Radical Highway because it takes inspiration from both. As of recording this, I've recently gotten 100% on my Shadow file, and there are a few minor hiccups with some late stage cleanup. This map is not as useful as it should be, but this is up there with one of the best games in the series, probably better than Gens was. That could be a shadow bias or recency bias talking, but this genuinely might be the best Sonic game and I'm not exaggerating. It takes something from pretty much every major game of the past and brings it together in an amazing experience. One well worth the asking price because you also get one of the other best Sonic games packaged in. I hope this is a sign of things to come for the series. While Frontiers means more to me as the game that kicked off the renaissance that we're in, this game should be the standard of where the series goes now. It's too fresh for me to put it on the totem pole I made at the end of the marathon, but I'm certain that once I've stewed on it, it'll be pretty high.
I'm hoping that this is a glimpse into the future, not just for mainline games, but also remasters and spin-offs. Think of the possibilities: Sonic X Knuckles Unleashed, Sonic X Silver Lost World, Sonic X Blaze and the Secret Rings, some sort of 06 remaster to give Silver a real chance in the spotlight that isn't relegated to just being Silver the Hedgehog. The possibilities are never ending. And it kills two birds with one stone because not only are you preserving a game in the past that might not be available on all consoles, but you also make a short new adventure to appease people who are looking for something new. Okay, I swear I'm done with Sonic for a while. We're going back to Metroid with Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. I promise I'm not going to talk about Sonic for a good while again, unless something magical happens. Next video is Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. Until then, I hope you have a great day, beautiful morning, awesome night. If it's your birthday, then happy birthday. And I was not joking when I said Sonic X Knuckles Unleashed. I would really like to see that. If they could make that a real gameplay, I think that's what they should do next.
Oh, fucking god damn it. How long was that there?